Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today is going to be another rendition of a 2021 NBA mock draft. However, with the draft lottery being a few weeks away, I decided to spice some things up here in this lottery. We are going to actually do right now in this video a live lottery simulation to kind of shake up the top 14, move some of the order around. Very interesting situations to play out. Before we jump into doing that, though, I want to urge you guys, hit that like button. Also, subscribe here at Utility Sports if you guys are new. 95% of our watch time comes from people who are not subscribed to the channel, so it would mean a lot for you guys to hit that subscribe button as we grow. We've got jersey giveaways planned for the future. We've got a couple jerseys on the way right now as well to my place, so we got a lot of stuff coming for you guys. Just make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on anything, and like today's video so we know you guys are enjoying the content we're putting out here. So now let's pull up the lottery draft simulator here at this point. You can see this is the correct order. I checked through this real quick before starting this video. Here the Rockets have a 14% chance, as do the Pistons and Magic, of landing the #1 pick. That is the standard for top three since the rule change back a few years ago, from the #1 team having a 25% chance down to a 14% chance. The Thunder, a team to watch here, could end up with two top 5 picks. The Rockets, that pick is top 4 protected, so there's a 48% chance it could fall to 5, and then that pick would convey to Oklahoma City. OKC could have two top 5 picks. They are a team to watch. The Minnesota Timberwolves, their pick is protected to the Golden State Warriors here. I'm repping a Steph Curry jersey today from the We Believe Warriors era, and very interesting here with pick 6, because the Wolves, if they move up into the top 3, they could keep their pick. They played extremely well down this stretch of the year. They've got Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards to build around. It's a talented team. Chris Finch, I think, is the right coach. They just need to add one more player into the selections through the draft here to really improve this roster. The Raptors, I know a lot of Raptors fans watch this. I'm pulling for you guys. Hopefully you guys move up in the lottery. That would be awesome. Remember, the lottery is June 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Bulls, another team worth monitoring here, because the Magic technically own this pick. If it does not go into the top 3, there is a 13.15% chance it lands in the top 3. So very possible that Chicago holds their pick. That would be huge for Billy Donovan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic if they're able to add more talent onto this roster yet, especially with how strong this class is at the top. And those are really the key teams to watch in this lottery. We'll do it now, and then we'll break down my thoughts on it, and then we'll go into the mock draft itself here. So let's run this lottery simulator in 3, 2, and 1. Here we go. Let's see how it plays out. The ping pong balls. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are the team to watch. Oh my goodness, there's a lot to break down here. Okay, so let's take a look at it. We're going to go one by one here. The Timberwolves jump up 5 selections here at this point. Let me actually go like this so you guys can't see too far down. The Timberwolves move up 5 spots, get the #1 pick yet again. That'll be the 4th time they've had a guy on their team who's the #1 overall pick in the last 8 years. Actually, 5th time, because they had Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, Karl-Anthony Towns, who were back-to-back #1 overall selections, and then also, of course, Anthony Edwards from last year. Here in this mock draft, they'll get another shot at pick 1. We'll see which way I end up taking them. That's a huge shakeup. The Oklahoma City Thunder at pick 2, they moved up 2 spots, which they were the team to watch. Look who's not in the top 5 so far. The Toronto Raptors jump up to pick 3. That's extremely exciting for that organization, getting a chance at maybe a franchise-altering player. We'll break down what we see there. The Pistons fall down a little bit, move down 2 spots. That's okay, though, for them. They can still get a very good player at pick 4. The Rockets, worst case scenario happens. The Rockets are bound into the top 5. They will be a top 5 pick. However, only a 52.1% chance they're in the top 4. If the pick falls to 5, it goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So Oklahoma City Thunder fans, you guys should be clapping right now, because you have not only the 2nd overall pick, but also the 5th overall pick in a very strong class, a top 5 heavy class, and you guys are going to get 2 really good players in this mock draft. The Magic move down a few spots, down to 6. Cavaliers get bumped down a little bit. Of course, the Wolves and Raptors moving up is what's going to do that to those franchises. The Bulls stay put at 8. Pelicans stay at 9. Spurs move up over the Kings by 1 spot, and the Pacers jump up 2 spots. The Hornets will round out the lottery. Very interesting lottery results. The top 5 here are the key ones to watch come lottery night. of course. So thank you guys so much for watching at this point, and we're going to go into the NBA mock draft part of this video right now.
Okay, guys, we are going to get right into the actual selections here after that simulated lottery. That was a lot of fun to do, but it's time to get down to business. So let's go ahead and start with the first overall pick in this draft. Turns out it is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they have the number one pick. There's a lot of different things that they can do with this selection. Obviously, they took Anthony Edwards last year, but where do you see them going this year? Is there a clear and obvious choice for them at the number one spot?
Right, this is a unique opportunity for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of course, they ended up earning themselves the sixth best odds in the lottery, jumped up 5 spots here, moving up to pick number 1, and it's going to be for point guard Cade Cunningham out of Oklahoma State. He's just too good of a talent to pass up on. Look for the Wolves, if they do win the lottery, to maybe use this pick as some trade bait, maybe make a big-time move. We'll see what Gershon Rosas decides to do with this pick if they do move up. This is something that could be franchise altering, though. You see D'Angelo Russell maybe take a backseat role for the long term. Cade Cunningham has all NBA potential. He's a player that at 6'7", using his point guard skills that he has, a very good passer, also a very selfless star, I think would fit perfectly into Minnesota. You could start running this offense immediately through Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns like Chris Finch wants to do there anyway in Minnesota. You got a big lineup. You've got a lot of different options there. I think Cade Cunningham would have to be the selection just based off of their roster at this point.
I agree completely. I think he is the right selection for them. They need a true wing, also a guy that can handle the rock, because like you said, D'Angelo Russell is going to kind of have to take that backseat role. There's going to be a lot of guys that need the ball in their hands too. That's going to be potentially an issue for the Minnesota Timberwolves, therefore triggering a possible move. Maybe D'Angelo Russell gets rerouted again. We will see. At number 2 here is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And who do you have them going here at the number 2 spot?
Right, this is the dream scenario here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This, of course, being their own pick. And they're going to take guard Jalen Green here out of G League Ignite. He played phenomenally during the G League season, played in all 15 games for them, averaged about 19 points a game, shot 46% from the field, and really showed what he is capable of against pro-level talent. That is the biggest thing, honestly, in my opinion, is he was facing NBA-ready players, guys who are pro athletes, and he held his own and also succeeded in a lot of different ways. The Thunder need someone else who can score the ball. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just asked to do too much in the half court for them, and Jalen Green can really do that. Now, I've got some question marks about his ability to handle the rock, especially going to the left, but there with Oklahoma City, the timetable fits perfectly for him to develop as a player. And he's also a great fit next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the future of that franchise.
So do you think those two are going to be a really good pairing moving forward, or do you think there's a possible better fit to go alongside of Shai Gilgeous?
You know, I think there is maybe a little bit better of a fit if you look at a guy like Jalen Suggs, someone who's maybe more of a true point guard himself as well, because then you have two really, really capable ball movers in Suggs and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Green's more of that scoring guard, which we've seen Shai Gilgeous-Alexander really take strides there. However, Jalen Green's just got more potential, in my opinion, and he's a little bit more talented of a player overall, even though he's not quite the passer that Jalen Suggs is, and maybe not quite the defender Suggs is. I think Suggs is probably the best fit, but based off of talent and potential, I think Jalen Green still has to go number 2 overall here.
At number 3, we have the Toronto Raptors, which they jump a little bit here in the lottery. So now that's really exciting for them, considering they do still have a talented roster. They just couldn't put it together this year. They had a slow start, and they just no momentum going through the end of the season. A lot to work on. Obviously, there's going to be moves made. What is the best player for that rebuild?
Right. Toronto Raptors fans have to know where this is going here at this point. This is the dream scenario for the Raptors. You move up into the top 3 and you see the 2 guards go 1 and 2. That has to be the hope here, because Evan Mobley is the missing piece here for Toronto. You're looking at a team that not only will be back in the playoffs if they get Evan Mobley, but will be a team advancing in the playoffs as well. Evan Mobley's that type of player, averaged over 3 blocks a game for USC this past season. He's got real two-way potential. He can protect the rim. It's a little bit like Bam Adebayo with his versatility. He can really move out on the perimeter defensively. And you look at Toronto really filling their weakest spot, the center position, for the long term. Evan Mobley fits their timeline. They went a little bit younger, moving Norman Powell this year for Gary Trent Jr. They've got the perimeter defenders. They've got the scoring. They just need someone to anchor that defense. Evan Mobley does that. You look at Chris Boucher being the long-term 6th man off the bench. This is a dream come true for Toronto. Raptors fans, you have to be ecstatic about this. USC product comes in, is going to be a day one impact in the NBA. Raptors fans should be extremely happy here.
Yeah, Evan Mobley, exactly fitting where Serge Ibaka had left off. Obviously, losing Serge Ibaka was tough for the Toronto Raptors. We saw some of the effect of that this season, but Evan Mobley is going to be quite a bit better than the version of Serge Ibaka that they had. So there's a lot to love about this pick. The Toronto Raptors are able to do a little bit of a retool and can kind of propel themselves into contention once again with this pick. At number 4, we have the Detroit Pistons, and the Detroit Pistons, they've had some mixed results in their rebuild and how that's gone so far, but maybe pick 4 is something that can really truly project them a little further. Obviously, you want to accelerate that rebuild as fast as possible, but there has been some roadblocks for this team. Can you lay out some of those roadblocks and also give us who pick 4 is?
Yeah, so the Pistons, I'm glad you asked about the roadblocks. Killian Hayes wasn't the pick that they should have made. It should have been Tyrese Halliburton. I know some people are saying, well, we needed a guy who could handle the rock, be the on-ball guard. Tyrese Halliburton is capable of doing that. I guess you guys just didn't see him at Iowa State a lot. Very, very quality passer as well. He's just not being asked to do that right now in Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox there. Also looking at the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart is a starting level center. He's not going to be an all-NBA center ever, so don't get your hopes up there. Saddiq Bey, another quality player, but that's the issue right now, is with the Pistons falling a little bit in this lottery simulation as well. They don't have a star player to build around. They don't have a guy that's going to put the ball in the hole, and there's really not a guy here at this point that I think is going to be a lock to be that. I was really divided here on who to select for the Detroit Pistons. I ended up mocking guard Jalen Suggs. I think he's got really good two-way potential, can be a really feisty defender, and I think he fits pretty well next to Killian Hayes. But now you're seeing some of the issues here. Maybe if they had Tyrese Halliburton with Jalen Suggs, you've probably got a little bit better of a 1-2 punch in that backcourt than Killian Hayes and Jalen Suggs, both two pass-first type of guards. I really looked at Jonathan Kuminga here. However, with Jeremy Grant being in the fold yet, I just didn't think that made as much sense as Jalen Suggs. I really like Suggs as a player. I think the fit's a little clunky with the Detroit Pistons, though, in their current roster situation. Troy Weaver's got a lot of work to do, inherited a bad situation, but I don't think he's done a lot to make it phenomenal there in Detroit. I know Pistons fans are probably not going to like hearing this, but I just think it's a long-term rebuild, especially if you guys fall in the lottery, which is very possible. Only a 14% chance that they have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, fit-wise, it's absolutely not phenomenal, but Jalen Suggs, definitely a talented player. And in the NBA, talent tends to override a lot of different things. Jalen Suggs, very, very talented player, very worthy of the number 4 overall pick. Phenomenal around the rim, great finisher, feisty defender like you had said. At number 5 here, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who do you think is going to complement their prior pick?
Right, this is the dream scenario for Oklahoma City fans. Not only did you get your own pick to move up to pick 2, but the Houston Rockets, which have a 48% chance of this happening, fall to pick 5. It's a top 4 protected pick. So this is the best case scenario for Oklahoma City, and they get it. And here at pick 5, they are going to opt for Jonathan Kuminga, the forward I just had mentioned in the last pick. And you're looking at a complete retool here. You add 2 guys who are teammates in G League Ignite, and Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Green already have a little bit of chemistry from playing together. And you're really swinging for the fences. You've got 2 very high potential prospects. I think Jonathan Kuminga, at the end of the day, we could be talking about him as the best player from this class with what he presents. He's a two-way wing, 6'8", has some skill in terms of passing the basketball. That's really what he proved to me a lot this past year for G League Ignite. And also really displayed a lot of characteristics I wasn't expecting from him. A little bit of a pull-up game in transition. Now, there was a little bit of an efficiency question mark. That's why he goes 5th overall in this mock. He's not going to be a guaranteed high floor guy, but I think his ceiling could be unmatched in this class. He's got that type of potential with that frame and the skill set he presents. In Oklahoma City, if you're moving forward with the big 3 of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Green, and Jonathan Kuminga, that's going to be problematic for the rest of the Western Conference for a long time. I think Oklahoma City Thunder fans should be extremely excited about this selection.
Now, earlier in the year, you were quoted as saying that this guy reminds you of Paul George. Does that still remain true later on as the year progressed?
It definitely does. And I know I might get a little bit of flack for that, but remember, Paul George was the 10th overall pick in his class. No one talked about him being a star in the NBA. Guys tend to bloom a little bit later in their career sometimes. Jonathan Kuminga, someone who was maybe looked at as the 8th or 9th overall pick coming into this year, played extremely well at the beginning of the G League Ignite season, had a few issues with injuries, missed a couple games that kind of slowed down his stock a little bit as well. But I think looking at his frame, the two-way potential he brings and his ability to handle the rock, which was a real surprise to me this year, he's got that type of potential. I think Paul George is going to be his comparison for me throughout this whole process.
At number 6, we have the Orlando Magic. Obviously, they've had some injury issues moving forward. Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, and they decided they were going to kind of shake it up a little bit. They traded Vucevic. They obviously traded Aaron Gordon as well. So there's a lot to be said about this team and where they're moving. What do you think is the best pick for them? Because they have a lot of questions with injuries. Are guys going to be the same players? They have, their rosters, having a complete overhaul almost. There's going to be a lot of different faces on this Magic team soon.
Right. It's a tough season for them. They're young, inexperienced, injured right now. Those are the three things you tend to not want to be if you're trying to compete. The Magic made the right move going for a rebuild. It hurts that they moved down a little bit in the lottery here, but they go for forward Scotty Barnes out of Florida State. If they fall to 6 and he's on the board, I consider this pick to be a very safe lock. They've drafted from Florida State before. You're staying in state there in the state of Florida. Of course, Jonathan Isaac came from Florida State, and I love what Scotty Barnes can bring. He has a little bit of guard skills. Now, offensively, he's got some limitations at this point, but he can really, really defend the basketball. I think that's going to be one of his greatest strengths coming to the NBA. And you're looking at Orlando really building up a defensive presence. Wendell Carter, who they brought over in the trade for Vucevic. You've also got Jonathan Isaac coming back, hopefully healthy next season. Scotty Barnes also on the wing next to him. This team's going to be able to defend. Steve Clifford's going to ask them to be a high-energy team, ask them to put in a lot of effort on that end of the floor, and I think Scotty Barnes is the perfect answer for them at pick 6.
Yeah, I think defensively, very, very one of the better defenders in the class. I think you would agree with me on that. But Scotty Barnes, Jonathan Isaac, that's going to be a tough team to get a bucket on in crunch time. However, Orlando still needs more. They're going to have to do more than just this in order to remain competitive in the Eastern Conference. At pick number 7 now, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Cleveland presents an interesting situation. Obviously, they got Isaac Okoro last year. They were guard heavy with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. So now what's the move for them? What is that next step to help continuing to rebuild this franchise?
Yeah, following some recent rumors here, Austin, I'm actually going to go with guard Josh Giddey out of the NBL. He played for the Adelaide 36ers this past season. Was a triple-double machine. I think he recorded 4 triple-doubles over there during the season, and he had 3 in a stretch of 5 games. I think the Toronto Raptors, had they not moved up, would be really looking at him. They had sent some pro scouts over to watch him during his time where he was recording 3 triple-doubles in those 5 games. But the Cavaliers here opt to select Josh Giddey because of some rumors that Colin Sexton could be on his way out this offseason. He's an interesting player to me because I don't know if he's going to be worth the contract that he might get out in restricted free agency. I think the Cavaliers are kind of having some internal debates about that as well. Hey, is Colin Sexton really a guy to build around? We've done nothing but lose with him. Now, it's not all on Colin Sexton's shoulders, but they've got a real crossroads ahead of them. Josh Giddey, I think, has superstar potential possibly. Kind of reminds me of Luka Doncic as a 6'7" point guard, someone who has a real feel for the game. Now, he's not going to be Luka Doncic. That would be a lazy take just in general, but he can really pass the ball as a bigger point guard. He has a little bit of shooting touch and just affects the game in a lot of different ways. I think that he's a really nice pick for Cleveland here, and I think they're going to restart their rebuild, honestly, around Josh Giddey and maybe Darius Garland as his running mate in the backcourt.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in Cleveland. There's a lot that they have to figure out. And once again, number 8, we have the Orlando Magic. Obviously, this comes from that Vucevic trade. They're very fortunate to have number 8 here. Where do you think the Magic are going to go with this next selection? Obviously, they went with Scotty Barnes before, and now where are they going?
Yeah, I'm going guard Davion Mitchell, and we're going to go all in on defense here in Orlando. Not only do they grab one of the best defenders in the draft in Scotty Barnes, someone who brings real size and length, but now they get the best defender in this year's class, Davion Mitchell. This guy can move his feet. I know that they've got a loaded backcourt already with RJ Hampton, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz there, but when you're Orlando, you're looking for talent. You're looking for guys who are winners. You're trying to build up this program, and you're going to make decisions that are going to be tough a little bit. Davion Mitchell, I think, is on day one better than RJ Hampton. I think he's better than Cole Anthony on day one. He just won a national championship for Baylor. I think he was the best player on that team, and he really showed it on the defensive end of the floor. Now imagine going up against Orlando where you're facing a lineup of Markelle Fultz, Davion Mitchell, Jonathan Isaac, Scotty Barnes, and Wendell Carter. That team can really defend. They're going to get out in transition. They're going to run. And they're going to be a tough team to match up with in transition specifically. Orlando, they're still going to need someone who can really score the ball in the half court consistently. This isn't a finished product yet, but Davion Mitchell, a very safe pick and someone who I think is going to have a phenomenal career in the NBA.
And it's incredible, regardless of size. Davion Mitchell, often regarded as the best defender in the entire class, second best defender. It's really, really close in that regard. But Davion Mitchell, definitely a guy that you can build around at that point guard spot. Moving on to pick 9, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. They have a lot to figure out. They have spacing issues. They have just roster issues as a whole. Obviously, Van Gundy has not worked out there with the Pelicans. So what's the move for them? Are they going to fire Van Gundy, and are they going to completely overhaul this roster?
I think Van Gundy's got at least one more year to go until maybe we're really starting to talk about him being on the hot seat. I know some rumors are out there saying that the team doesn't really like him. I don't blame them. He's very traditional in the way he runs practices, a lot of running, a lot of physical labor during practice in a lot of different ways. And, it's an old style version of the game, very post-centric, very inside-out oriented. But here they have to find some more shooting, and it's going to be guard Moses Moody. I honestly think that Stan Van Gundy's probably not going to be all in on the Moses Moody train, to be honest with you. I think this is David Griffin using his GM powers to override what Stan Van Gundy ultimately wants. And I think David Griffin's probably going to start seeing the writing on the wall here that maybe Stan Van Gundy wasn't the right hire here in New Orleans. I think Moses Moody's a must. They have to get a shooter in this year's draft. After moving J.J. Redick and Nico Melli, there's just not a lot of floor spacing. Lonzo Ball could be on his way out. They drafted Kyra Lewis last year, who, one of the bigger knocks on him was his shooting. So we got some question marks here for New Orleans long-term, especially when it comes to the offensive end of the floor. How are they going to provide spacing to both Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram for the long-term? I think Moses Moody's a building block to start that, but there's still a lot more work to be done here in New Orleans.
And there is a lot of work to be done, but hopefully with the shooting of Moses Moody, they can kind of get that turned around. At pick number 10, we have the San Antonio Spurs. Once again, they've just had a tough go of things. Obviously, their roster is going to look a lot different than it was at the start of this year. What's the next move for the Spurs? They took Vassell last year. Who's the pick this year?
Yeah, I really, really like this pick. This player I'm a little divided on myself, but this fit I really am in love with. It's Usman Garuba here out of Spain. He's a guy who's very, very intriguing to me. He's 6'9", but he's going to play probably the center as a small ball center or the 4-man position most often in the NBA, despite being a little undersized for those positions. Kind of reminds me of Draymond Green. Very, very, very quick on his feet, can defend multiple positions, a little bit more athletic than Draymond Green as well, in my opinion, especially when protecting the rim. Averaged a good number of blocks overseas this past year. He's young as well. He's only 19 years old as the draft rolls around. He's got a lot of potential. I think this is a perfect fit into the Spurs roster. He's going to be someone you could play next to Jakob Poeltl early on, or could also play off when Jakob Poeltl's off the floor. Gives the Spurs another rim protector, which I think is really key there. The Spurs are moving in a direction where they're probably going to lose DeMar DeRozan, Patty Mills. They've got a lot of different things to figure out there in San Antonio, but I think Usman Garuba fits long-term into what this roster looks like moving forward.
I think that's exactly what the Spurs will be looking for with that 10th overall selection. Moving on to number 11, we have the Sacramento Kings. And once again, this is kind of like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have to kind of figure out who they are and what direction that they want to go. A lot of questions with this team, with De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, and the fit. And who do you have at 11?
I'm going with center Kai Jones here out of the University of Texas because I think Richaun Holmes is going to be a guy they end up losing in free agency. I think he's going to have a really hot market. I think a lot of executives around the league really like what he's going to bring. I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to be in on Richaun Holmes. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers will maybe look at Richaun Holmes as well. A bunch of different teams, especially teams with cap space, maybe the Charlotte Hornets this offseason, are going to be in on the Kings starting center. So Kai Jones is going to have to be a replacement pick, and he reminds me a little bit of another Texas center we've seen go recently in Jackson Hayes. He's going to be athletic. He can run the rim well. He's going to be good in the pick and roll game. Now, he's got some areas to improve on. He's only started 14 games in his college career as a sophomore, so that's a little bit of a question mark for me as well. But looking at the Kings here, they need to find someone who's going to help fill out that front court. I don't think Marvin Bagley's going to finish his rookie contract there in Sacramento. I also think that Richaun Holmes is out, so this is a pick to fill a need here at this point. Maybe a little bit of a reach on Kai Jones. I understand that, but I still think after Garuba goes off the board, he's the best available center at this point.
Yeah, I think that is definitely going to be the move, especially with the whole debate on Richaun Holmes. Are they going to keep him, or is he going to go in free agency? You have to be protected with that. Kai Jones maybe pushed up a little bit of draft boards due to the lack of depth at the center spot. At number 12, we have the Indiana Pacers. And the Pacers, once again, they have to figure out who they are as well. There's a lot of discussion on what direction do they need to go. I think this is a possible pick that ultimately gets traded during the draft. I think that is a possibility, maybe to trade for a player that's ready to help them compete right now. They want to capitalize on the roster that they have. Do you think a trade could happen, or do you think they would stick here at 12 and make a pick?
The Pacers are one of the hardest teams right now for me. I think that it's very likely they try and upgrade their roster. I also think it's possible that maybe they attach a guy like TJ Warren with this pick to try and move up in the draft. There's a lot of different things that they could look to do. Nate Bjorkgren, I don't think his job is safe as their head coach there. Of course, firing Nate McMillan was not the move for that Pacers team. They took a step back this year. But at 12 at this point, I have them going guard Keon Johnson. He slid a little bit. A lot of people see him as a top 10 pick. I can see why, but part of it's hard to find a fit for me a little bit. He's more of a slashing-oriented guard, only shot about 31% from three this past year for the Tennessee Volunteers. I think he's got a lot of areas to improve in yet, but he's bringing good size at 6'5". He's a combo guard, has a good handle at this point, very, very athletic and quick with the ball in his hands as well. And I think that he's going to be a player that Indiana probably tries to draft, play him off the bench early on, and then gives them a little bit of flexibility with that roster, figuring out if Karis LeVert's a guy they want to build around or if they're going to use him as a trade chip. Malcolm Brogdon could very well be on his way out. I think Keon Johnson just gives them a little bit of flexibility in that backcourt as a combo guard for the future.
Yeah, like you said, it's very hard to pinpoint what direction the Pacers are going to go in, because they are almost in no man's land. They didn't tank enough to be, a top tier pick, but also at the same time, they're not where they need to be in postseason position. So at number 12, taking the slashing-oriented guard makes sense for this team if they were to stay there. At 13, we have the Golden State Warriors. And Golden State, once again, they're going to be getting Klay Thompson back season with the roster as a whole. There are trades that are going to be done. I think they're going to be content with just re-adding Klay Thompson coming off of his ACL. Where are the Warriors going here at the 13th pick?
Right, I think the Warriors are looking for more athleticism, more physicality on this team, and I think guys are going to be able to get to the rim, and there's a really good player out here yet who has a little bit of off-the-court question marks, and that's forward Jalen Johnson. Ended up opting out of the season halfway through for Duke, but he was playing really, really good basketball before opting out, and I think he's a really, really interesting player in this year's draft. He can take guys off the dribble, off the perimeter. He's basically built to be a four-man. I think Kelly Oubre's on his way out. Jalen Johnson's going to be a perfect addition into this roster. He does what you need him to do. He's going to provide a little bit of an interesting fit with Draymond Green, especially when Curry and Draymond run that little two-man game with the high screen and roll where Curry gets high doubled often and kicks it down to Draymond. Jalen Johnson is going to be a lob finisher on the back end of that. I think Draymond Green would love playing with Jalen Johnson, and I think the Warriors here should be really happy getting Jalen Johnson at this point. He's a guy who I thought would maybe be the 6th overall pick, possibly 5th overall pick, as the season was progressing. Then his opt-out kind of pulled down his stock a little bit. Really good bang for your buck at this point.
Yeah, obviously the opt-out definitely plays into this pick. And like you said, he very well could have been a top 10 pick, possibly even as high as top 5 pick. But with the opt-out, uncertainty there, sometimes teams don't like that when players opt out. But, they made that executive decision to opt out, and they're going to sometimes pay the price for it. But with the Golden State Warriors getting a very nice player. At 14, we have the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets definitely have some glaring weaknesses. However, they are in the right direction of their rebuild. They're getting close. They're getting closer and closer in that East from being a playoff team. Now, where do you think that they'll go? Obviously, the center position is a position of need. They tried to address that with 2 of their picks last year, but obviously they were not ready for this season, and we saw a lot of Bismack Biyombo during the year.
Right. I think the Hornets here are probably going to let Vernon Carey and Nick Richards play quite a bit in their sophomore seasons. I don't really see them addressing that, so they're going to go with forward Corey Kispert here. They're going to just take best player available and add some more shooting around LaMelo Ball. I think this is a pretty safe way to go about the draft at this point, the last pick of the lottery here. And Corey Kispert does make a lot of sense. Miles Bridges had a much more efficient season, but however, you still need a little bit more shooting, in my opinion. Malik Monk is a restricted free agent, had really, really bright spots this year, kind of emerged in the final year of his contract at that point. I'm happy to see that for him, but they've still got some question marks along that wing position. I think Corey Kispert comes in, probably plays off the bench early on, but also could be thrusted into a starting lineup. He's ready to do so. He's a senior at Gonzaga, shot over 40% from 3 for his career there, and showed a lot of range as well. I think he's an underrated athlete. And ultimately, this is a pick to find fits around LaMelo Ball.
I was just going to mention before you said that, I think this is one of the best fits that we've seen of all the picks thus far. I think he works wonderfully in Charlotte. Him and LaMelo Ball are going to be a dangerous pairing. Also having PJ Washington and Miles Bridges, that is going to be a formidable lineup. And you can do a lot of different things with Corey Kispert. They definitely needed some more shooting to this roster, and Kispert gives that to them. At number 15, we have the Washington Wizards. And the Wizards, once again, they have to kind of figure out what's the next step. Obviously, they have Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal to build around. They have Rui Hachimura, who they like. But there's a lot of questions outside of that group. Where do you think the Wizards will go?
This is another pick I really, really am falling in love with as we go out throughout this process. And that is center/forward Alperen Şengün out of Turkey. Very, very interesting player to me. Has a lot of the similar vibes of what we got from Aleksej Pokusevski last year. However, I think he's a lot better than Aleksej Pokusevski coming in. He's someone who has real footwork. He's going to be a low block scorer on day one. We've seen how Washington's utilized Robin Lopez this year as someone who's going to score off the low block, shooting the highest percentage on jump hooks this year. And Şengün's got next level footwork. He's going to be able to score in a variety of ways, drop steps, hooks across the middle, up and under moves. He's got it all. We're looking at a Turkish dream shake in a lot of different ways. Now, he's not going to be Hakeem Olajuwon. I'm not suggesting that he actually is, but he's really fun to watch. He's got a good feel for the game. He's 6'10", but can really pass the ball as well. Also has some touch to step out from the three-point line. He's going to be a little bit of a project. I don't think he's ready day one to be a starter or anything like that, but you're looking at a team who needs some help in the front court for sure, and I think is a unique, dynamic prospect that they take looking at the future and seeing, we're not going to compete for a title yet at this point. They're about to lose in their series to the Philadelphia 76ers. They're down 3-1 in that series at the point we're recording this. I just think that they have to take an approach for the future, and I think Şengün has very, very high potential.
I agree. I think that pick makes a lot of sense. They do have to address that front court. I think that is the direction that they will go. I think this is one of those high upside picks. Like Pokusevski, it's going to be a risk. However, it very well could pay off for Washington. At pick 16, we have the Boston Celtics. Obviously, they are having some struggles against the Brooklyn Nets as it stands. To be fair, a lot of teams in the East would have issues with the Brooklyn Nets being arguably the best roster in the entire league as it stands. But for the Boston Celtics, their issues have not just been in the playoffs. They had some issues during the regular season. That's why they were such a low seed, just because they struggled a lot throughout the entire year. I'm not exactly sure how you fix this. Do you think pick 16 is going to be that difference maker, or are they going to have to do some things outside of that?
I think that they're going to be looking at this roster as a whole. Danny Ainge is going to do a lot of self-assessment here. I think Kemba Walker's a name to watch this offseason. Seriously, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a New York Knick when it's all said and done, staying on the East Coast there. Also, you have to look at this team. There's question marks about Evan Fournier. He's on an expiring deal. They traded for him from the Orlando Magic this year. I just have question marks about that backcourt, so I'm going to go best player available here for them, and that's James Bouknight out of the University of Connecticut. They might be replacing former UConn player Kemba Walker with current UConn player James Bouknight, someone who can play a little bit as a combo guard. I think has an underrated feel for the game, underrated passer. Now, I don't think he has an elite trait that's going to transfer to the NBA, but he's just someone who's going to give you quality minutes and can do a lot of different things for an NBA franchise. He doesn't need to be a build-around player there in Boston. That's why this pick doesn't scare me as much. You're looking at Tatum and Brown, of course, being those two build-around guys. Bouknight slots in as a nice quality player who's going to help them win there in Boston, and that's everything that they want to do there. When you have 17 championship banners, all you want to do is win. James Bouknight will help them do that.
I think Bouknight is a good fit with the Boston Celtics. At number 17, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, who are fighting for their playoff lives currently against the Utah Jazz. As we are recording this video, they are down 1-3 in the series. And for the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant has been playing phenomenally in these playoffs. However, he needs some more help. This roster has some decent players, but there's no absolute star outside of Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson is a nice player. He's not a star. What kind of role player could you see here really helping out the Grizzlies, or do you think this could be a potential trade chip?
I think this is a trade chip, possibly in the offseason if they're looking to bring in a little bit more talent. However, at this point at 17, I'm just going to have them go with a player here. And you're looking at it, they've hit on some of their picks on role players in the past, Desmond Bane being the latest example of that. He's played phenomenally all year long in the role that they drafted him to be, a 3-and-D wing. They feel pretty good about Dylan Brooks. My question mark is the front court. They're oftentimes in foul trouble. Jonas Valanciunas in foul trouble a lot. Jaren Jackson fouled out multiple times this year. Also, Dylan Brooks fouls out quite a bit. They need someone who can be a little versatile at that forward spot, play the 3 or 4, and that's Franz Wagner out of Michigan. He brings toughness, which is something that they want there in Memphis. A little bit more grit and grind added to this roster with Franz Wagner. I think this is an interesting pick. I have question marks about his ceiling, but he's going to be able to come in, give you quality minutes. I know that they have Brandon Clark there. It's just to round out the rest of their front court if they're not able to get anything done in free agency.
Now, their front court would be rather rounded out with the selection of Franz Wagner at 17. At number 18, now we have the Houston Rockets, and this is via the Miami Heat. So the Houston Rockets are in full rebuild mode. Obviously, they kind of stripped down their roster and looking to completely change what they had built. Obviously, now at number 18, you're going to find probably a role player here. Is there somebody that kind of fits in nicely with this roster?
Yeah, there is a guy actually that I think is a pretty good grab here. And remember, Houston Rockets fans, this was the worst case scenario for you guys with how the lottery played out. You lost pick 1 because it fell to pick 5 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. You're due to have 3 picks in this year's draft. This pick would have been OKC if your pick stayed in the top 4. However, it doesn't. So you have 18, 23, and 24 in this mock draft. And at 18, you're going to go guard Jaden Springer out of Tennessee. I think that he's a underrated player in this year's class. I think he's got some real shot creation potential. And you're just looking to fill in your backcourt a little bit more and take a guy who has high upside coming out as a freshman, shot around 38, 39% from 3 this past year, I believe, and is a player that I think could help take the load off of Kevin Porter Jr. for the long term. At some point, I'm expecting a buyout to come for John Wall. I would just be surprised if he finishes his contract out there in Houston. We'll see how everything plays out. But everything's going to be centered around Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood, and I think Jaden Springer comes in, gives you a nice another creator that they badly need into this lineup.
They absolutely need a creator. Jaden Springer does give that to them, but they had really struggled outside of Kevin Porter Jr. in that creation department. Love that pick at number 18 for them. At 19, we have the New York Knicks, and obviously the New York Knicks have showed out this year, but now they're kind of running into some issues in the playoffs. Is there a pick here that can really help propel them in the East next year?
I really think there is actually here, and it's going to be a VCU guard, Nashawn Highland, better known as Bones Highland, and this guy can really, really shoot the ball. Sophomore out of VCU, he torched my Dayton Flyers twice this year, did it twice last year as well. He's a guy who can really, really shoot the ball. I believe he's a career 39% shooter from 3, but he's got some real range to him as well. A little bit of an unorthodox form, takes a little bit of time to load up, but he can shoot it off the bounce, he can shoot it off the catch. He does a lot of different things, and the Knicks have real question marks at point guard. In my opinion, moving forward, Alfred Payton's a free agent, Derrick Rose is a free agent, Frank Ntilikina is entering restricted free agency. Those are 3 of your top guards there. Of course, Emmanuel Quickley, who they drafted last year, someone to build around, and I think Highland's going to be a great complement to Quickley as well. I think the 2 of those guys could coexist for the future. That's why I have Bones Highland going here 19th overall to the New York Knicks.
Absolutely. I think they do need some more shooting for sure. There's a lot of uncertainty with those guards in New York. You have to be prepared in case some of those guys do leave in free agency and you cannot afford to pay them, or if you make a move for a star ultimately, like you had mentioned, Kemba Walker, that's going to kind of play into this. So at number 20 now we have the Atlanta Hawks, and Atlanta has done a really, really nice job in these playoffs. Obviously, they were able to go in New York and win, but they were a little rattled in that other game in New York. But ultimately, Atlanta's done a really nice job building out this roster centered around Trae Young and have really catered to his needs. Is there another pick here that can help out this team long term?
Yeah, I think so. This is kind of a hard team to find a real selection for. I think that they need a little bit more playmaking help off the bench, and I'm going to have them go with Zaire Williams. He's fallen a little bit, highly regarded coming out of high school. Didn't have the best season at Stanford, struggled a little bit in terms of efficiency, but he can help a team in a lot of different ways, and I think that's what's really attractive here for the Atlanta Hawks with selecting him at 20. He can take a little bit of the playmaking pressure off of Trae Young. He's posted multiple triple-doubles in his short one-year college career. He's also a quality rebounder, very athletic out in transition. Kind of reminds me of a little bit more of an athletic Nicholas Batum, which maybe doesn't sound like a great comparison for a prospect coming into the NBA draft. But by that, I mean he's going to have a long career. He's going to help teams in a lot of different ways. And I think he's going to be very valuable to winning moving throughout his career. And I think the Hawks would love to grab him here at pick 20.
I think that is a good pick for the Hawks. And moving on to number 21, we have once again the New York Knicks, and this is via the Dallas Mavericks from the Kristaps Porzingis trade. Now, the New York Knicks have to feel pretty good, obviously, making the playoffs. They had a pick earlier. Once again, they come back at pick 21 and can kind of help build out this roster for the future. Who is the pick here at 21?
Yep, after grabbing Bones Highland at 19, they're going to come in and get a little bit more shooting. This one being forward Johnny Juzang out of UCLA. This is someone who I think is going to be a perfect fit into this roster. Reggie Bullock's also a free agency. It's a big offseason ahead of New York. A lot of their role players that have helped them get to where they're at are entering free agency. They've got a lot of cap space. They have a lot of different ways to improve this roster yet, but they might have a few casualties from their role players. Reggie Bullock being a very likely one in my opinion. Johnny Juzang not only can spot up and shoot the ball though, but he gives you a little bit of creation off the dribble, which is something I really think the Knicks need. We've seen how much the Atlanta Hawks are able to load up on Julius Randle in the series. And Knicks fans, let's not lie to ourselves. Randle's struggling because of this. You need someone else who can take the pressure off. Derrick Rose has been the best player for the New York Knicks this series. He's a free agent. You need more help in the half-court offense department, and Johnny Juzang, a three-level scorer, is going to provide that assistance for Julius Randle.
He definitely will provide some scoring assistance for this team. They definitely need to add a little bit more around Julius Randle. Once again, uncertainty with Derrick Rose moving forward. You got to have somebody else ready to go. At 22, we have the LA Lakers, and the Lakers at this point, they've had some struggles with the Phoenix Suns. There's a lot going on. They're not healthy. Some of the chemistry seems a bit off from time to time. Like last year, that was not at all the case during the entirety of the bubble. At 22, they have to make some decisions on what's going to help LeBron the most alongside Anthony Davis. Who's a good fit here?
Yeah, the best fit here at this point is Cam Thomas out of LSU, Austin. I know you really like this kid as an LSU fan yourself. He can really score the basketball, led all freshmen in scoring. I believe he also led the SEC in scoring. He does a lot of different things. He's going to help take pressure off LeBron James. And Dennis Schroeder is a free agent this offseason as well. Talking about the New York Knicks, Schroeder could be a guy who ends up there. The Schroeder's going to have a big market. It's already turned down a contract extension from the Los Angeles Lakers. I think plans on cashing out in free agency. He's 27, 28 years old. Going into next year, you're looking at a player that's going to try and get the bag in his last big-time contract. So Cam Thomas comes in, fills that void as a creator off the bench for the Lakers. And I really like what he's going to be able to bring to the Lakers staying in purple and gold.
Yeah, the Lakers definitely need another creator off the bench, a guy that can be a go-to scorer. Cam Thomas did prove that at LSU. At number 23 here, we have the Houston Rockets. Once again, this is via Portland. The Rockets stacking up on the picks like you had previously mentioned. Now, who's once again a good fit for this team?
Yeah, this one is actually one I really love here at this point. It's going to be Isaiah Jackson out of the University of Kentucky. Averaged over 2.5 blocks a game for the Kentucky Wildcats this past season. Was one of the few bright spots really for that roster, actually, in my opinion. Didn't play a ton, but was very effective when he did play. The Rockets badly need a backup big behind Christian Wood. When Justin Patton was starting, they lost 20 straight games, to give you an idea of how badly they need a center behind Christian Wood. When he was out, they were just brutal. Isaiah Jackson's an immediate day one improvement. He's going to be a rotation player immediately and really help them on the defensive end of the floor by adding some rim protection. I think you could even look at him playing alongside Christian Wood occasionally. Not a ton of minutes together, but every once in a while, Christian Wood is talented enough to step out to the three-point line on the offensive end. Isaiah Jackson, he's going to be a rim runner, but I think if utilized correctly, could end up having a career like Nerlens Noel.
Yeah, I think long-term, this is a guy that will stick around from this draft class. Obviously, those guys tend to have some longevity. Not always is it the scoring bigs that stick around because they just don't have the role for it. This is a guy that will be valuable pretty much no matter what to most capacity. So at number 24, we have the Houston Rockets once again, and this is via Milwaukee. Who's going to complement the previous picks?
Yeah, this is a tough one here for me, but I'm opting just for talent instead of complement at this point, and it's going to be guard Trey Mann out of the University of Florida. I think he's one of the best players still available on the board at this point. He can handle the rock, and he can score the rock. I already know we went with Jaden Springer earlier, someone else who has some creation potential. For the Rockets here, you have to start swinging on some potential guys, especially with the unfortunate fall out of the top 4 picks in the lottery. Trey Mann, you have to be looking at him at this point if you're Houston, just adding more talent. I know they need wing help, but it's just a little bit thin at this point with who's been off the board. I think Trey Mann's one of the safer picks that still has pretty good potential at this point.
I think once again, you have to opt for guys with potential, especially when you have a long rebuild ahead of you. Sometimes you need to take chances. Obviously, Kevin Porter Jr. was regarded as a risky selection when they did take him, but he had tremendous upside, worked out, obviously, now that they traded for him. At pick 25, the LA Clippers. At this point, the Clippers have pretty good depth as a whole. They like a lot of the guys on their bench, but there will be some changes. Patrick Beverley might be gone in the offseason. They need a guy that can really play make. Rondo will be back for another year, but could you see them potentially going point guard?
Yeah, that's actually where I have them looking, a kind of a combo guard in Jared Butler, someone who's going to give you a little bit of different things that he can do on the floor. You're looking at someone who I look at this backcourt, and that's where I have a lot of question marks. Reggie Jackson, I just don't really love what he brings, to be completely honest. Patrick Beverley, I think very well could be used as a trade chip this offseason. Luke Kennard, barely been playing in the playoffs. That's a head scratcher to me. Jared Butler comes in. He's going to bring a winning attitude. Won the national title alongside Davion Mitchell, was clearly a top 2 player on that team. And the Clippers are just looking for guys who are going to help winning. I expect Serge Ibaka to be back. Zubats isn't going anywhere. I think that front court is pretty well set. It's just going to be looking into the backcourt, maybe trying to find someone who can help you win in the short term.
And who knows, once again, that could be a trade piece. That's what a lot of these teams at the back half of this draft like to do, especially in the 20s. At pick 26, we have the Denver Nuggets. In Denver, they have a lot of things to figure out with this team. Jamal Murray, obviously being hurt, really hurts their chances this year of making a deep playoff run like they did last year. But at 26, there is some valuable players still left on the board. Anybody that sticks out to you here for Denver?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with guard Ayo Dosunmu out of Illinois. I think he's fallen a little bit in this mock draft. I think a lot of people look at him as maybe a top 20 pick, and I definitely think he's talented to be a top 20 pick. Now, some questions are, what's his role in the NBA? I don't think a lot of potential here with him. I think he's got a pretty high floor, but also kind of a lower ceiling than some of these other guys that have gone off the board. But this fills in the need that they have now after trading RJ Hampton. I know that they got Monty Morris under contract, but I still think that they could use a little bit more backcourt help. Will Barton probably won't be around for a long-term situation there in Denver. So you're looking at someone who can fill in some minutes in the backcourt and is going to help you win because he's going to bring defensive intensity, and he's also going to bring quality basketball in the transition game, and he's going to be a good cutter off of Nikola Jokic in the half court as well.
Agreed on the whole potential thing. I think for him, he's got that high floor, but not as high a ceiling as some of these other guys in the 20s. At number 27, we have the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, the Brooklyn Nets have a really phenomenal roster, but there is going to be some change. There are going to be some guys that aren't able to re-sign due to contract reasons. Does this pick kind of help fill out the roster as a whole?
It really does, and this is what we call preventative measures here for the Brooklyn Nets. They're going to go with guard Chris Duarte out of Oregon, and it's kind of funny because I think he's almost a copy-paste version of Spencer Dinwiddie, who they're going to lose. Spencer Dinwiddie, 6'6" point guard. Chris Duarte, a 6'5" point guard. Gives you a lot of the similar attributes. Isn't going to be a phenomenal half-court scorer, but his quality. He's also quality on the boards. He's going to give you what you're looking for out of a role-playing guard early on in his career. Now, he's older. He's 22 years old already. Played 2 years for the Oregon Ducks. I've got some question marks about his potential, but I think, again, another high-floor guy, someone who can come in, be part of that rotation. We've seen them pulling from all over the place. Tyler Johnson, of course, they've also made some other moves into that backcourt as well. They've done a lot of different things trying to find some answers when Kyrie Irving's missing games for personal reasons or when James Harden's out with some injury management. Of course, Kevin Durant's probably never going to play another full 82-game season in his career. So you got to find some guys who are going to have some talent off the bench, and Chris Duarte is going to be that for them.
And he is pretty much ready, NBA ready now. You're not going to have to bank on a ton of development with him. He is kind of what you see on the floor right now. So for the Brooklyn Nets, it's just finding quality players that are ready to contribute during the championship window. At number 28, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, who have done a really nice job kind of turning things around, flipping the narrative on them being, a bad playoff team. But at this point, Doc Rivers has done a great job with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They are firing on all cylinders right now. At 28, who's going to be that role player for them?
Right. I've still got some question marks about this team long-term, but I have them going forward. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, I think he's another safe pick, and they're actually staying in the state of Pennsylvania here with a Villanova product in Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. He comes into their front court. Dwight Howard's not under a long-term contract. I think that they just need a little bit more size and toughness on this roster. You're looking at Matisse Thybulle, someone who struggles a little bit offensively. I think Robinson Earl's more of a well-rounded player. I think he could have a similar impact to what we've seen Jalen Brunson have just coming out of Villanova, being a late first round or early second round pick, and helping teams win games. Now, if the 76ers have this pick on draft night, I will be surprised. Daryl Morey doesn't like draft picks. It's almost like he's allergic to them. But if they do, I think Jeremiah Robinson Earl makes the most sense because their scouting department probably won't get that far out of Pennsylvania anyway.
Yeah, it's very likely that pick is traded. At 29, we have the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix is really giving the Lakers all kinds of fits in this series. So hopefully they can find a role player that really complements what they have already. Who is that for you?
Right. Cameron Payne's played so well for them, but I think that they have to look in-state here as well. They go with the Arizona State product guard, Josh Christopher. I really, really like this kid's game. I think that he's got a lot of upside. However, it's not going to be someone who's going to complement them early. I think that they probably go into a short-term deal with Cameron Payne based on how he's played this year. I think that he should have gotten some consideration for most improved because he went from basically out of the league to actually meaningful role player within a year, which is something you don't really see. But at the same time, I don't feel necessarily confident that that's going to continue. Josh Christopher probably spends most of his rookie season down in the G League as a two-way player, but I think he's got some real creation potential. Reminds me of Kevin Porter Jr. Struggled from three this past year for Arizona State, only shot 29% from behind the arc, but real creation potential, really athletic, 6'5" kid, was really highly regarded coming out of high school. And I think if he gets on track in the G League, could be a nice NBA player for Phoenix.
This is one of those high ceiling guys, but also very, very low floor potentially with this pick at 29. At number 30, we have the Utah Jazz, and Utah right now is controlling the series against the Grizzlies as we speak. For the Utah Jazz, they have really good depth as a whole. I really like what they have on their rosters. There's someone that could kind of be that missing piece for them potentially off of their bench.
Yeah, talk about high ceiling and high risk. This is a guy that many people might love here. BJ Boston out of the University of Kentucky. I mean, he really, really struggled this past year for Kentucky. I believe shot 35% from the field, sub 30% from three, did not play like a first-round pick at all. But he was a top 5 recruit coming out of high school. You look at him and you see a lot of upside. Can handle the ball despite being 6'8", has phenomenal length. He's going to measure at over a 7-foot wingspan, in my opinion. Just looking at him, that's what I'm estimating at this point. He needs to put on some weight, but Utah has the infrastructure there. They can put him in the G League not only 1, maybe 2 or 3 years, however long it takes to really try and unlock BJ Boston. It's going to fit into their window. Look at Michael Porter Jr. Look at how Denver operates their drafts. Utah has a chance here to make a move like that, take a guy who could maybe really develop into something long-term. He's not going to help Utah short-term. Maybe that's a little foolish for them to not be looking for someone to help in the short-term, but their star players are still young. Gobert's not 30. Donovan Mitchell, of course, also very young. BJ Boston could fit into the later part of their window if they take him in this year's draft.
Yeah, BJ Boston obviously has tremendous upside. I really like how he can handle the rock. He can be a creator at time to time, but we did not see that ultimately from him at Kentucky. However, sometimes that happens where guys just don't get it going right away after their expectations are so highly set for them at the college level. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please subscribe if you are new to the channel. We do cover so much NBA content, and also leave a like on this video if you enjoyed what you saw. This goes to show we do a lot of work here. Sheldon does a ton of work for these NBA mocks. It would really, really help us out if you did leave a like on our videos. It'd be greatly appreciated. We will see you guys in our very next video.